Hello there, my name is Oluwaseun. I want to welcome you to LIS106 course, the philosophy and development of librarianship. I'm sure you are going to have a good time here. So let's go.
Let's look at our lesson overview. Today's lesson deals with the views and developmental stages in librarianship over the years. And we shall be considering libraries as entities that organize human knowledge with emphasis on preservation or conservation of knowledge. And librarians perform active roles in dissemination of information and user-guard personal attention. Our learning objectives are as follows: to define some concept in library and information systems, understand the history of librarianship before 1500 BC to 20th century, and understand the history of librarianship in the 21st century. Definition of concept. Let's define some concept now. Library. The word library means a collection of books for study, research, reference, and recreation. The term books refer to the library collection, which may be books, periodicals, or any other material kept in the library. Information. Information is a meaningfully processed data. It can be defined as the combination of well-organized sets of data. For information to be valuable or meaningful, it must be accessible, accurate, timely, complete, cost-effective, flexible, reliable, relevant, simple, verifiable, and secure. Systems. Systems are sets of interrelated components which clearly define boundaries. And components could mean entities, factors, members, parts. For example, a family is a system with components such as father, mother, and children, and all of them have clearly defined roles to make the system work. Institution. This is a social structure in which people cooperate and which influences the behavior of people and the way they live. It is an establishment, foundation, or organization created to pursue an endeavor, such as the library. Services. The action of helping or doing work for someone. For example, a librarian helps library users to retrieve information. A painter helps people to paint their houses. Information system. An information system is a collection of hardware, software, people working together to collect, store, sort, and process information. Example is a garri production plant where we have the farmer, driver, peelers, fryers, sellers, and finally the eater of the garri. Information institutions. These are organizations charged with providing resources and services to meet educational, informational, cultural, and or recreational needs of their clients. For example, library. The people working in the library are called librarians. Information services. This is the system of keeping records, forms, statistics, and data. It is a service which provides information. We have as an example the weather forecaster. These are people that predict weather condition, whether it's going to rain or not, or it's going to be a sunny day. Our class activity 1. Is the library still relevant? You have just learned about library and information. We are presently in information and knowledge-driven age. Can you say that the library is still relevant in this age? What is a library? Do you think a library is a living organism? And where can we find libraries? Is there any relationship between information and library? Must library be confined to physical structures? I would want you to work on this, do a research on these questions in order for you to get a better understanding or have a better understanding about what we are teaching now. We want to look at librarianship before 1500 BC to 1 BC. The history has been neglected for decades, and books on this subject are rarely available. Some historical periods are blank with little or no records about such periods. Due to disjointed or missing data, as several ancient libraries were invaded and collections destroyed by fire. In some cases, invaders looted and carried invaluable collections to enrich their libraries. Books in the early libraries were called manuscripts, and these manuscripts were depleted by hand, and monasteries and religious organizations played important roles in the preservation of these manuscripts. Librarianship between 1500 and 1 BC. There were records of the collection of teeth, necklaces, message sticks, hunter trophies, tattooing coupons during this era. This area witnessed the revolution of writing media such as clay tablets, papyrus, parchment, and codex. The use and collection of handwritten clay tablets used for storing information to form libraries began in 200 BC and 1600 BC. A great collector known as Eumenes II of Pergamon started the use of parchment, which later displayed papyrus in writing materials. And parchment were made from animal skin. Information were written on both sides, which made it very popular. And this heralded the beginning of codex form of book. The first libraries, though the date of introduction is still undetermined, had collections of clay tablets as those of Assurbanipal at Nineveh or papyrus introduced around 200 BC in Alexandria Library. And there were libraries housing numerous collections of books manned by scribes who were librarians in different palaces and temples. Callimachus in 300 to 240 BC, the poet and philosopher cut rolls to form books and compiled a catalog called Pinax, consisting of 120 rolls of papyrus. He developed a classification scheme consisting of the following main classes: philosophers, lawmakers, historians, orators, poets, and miscellaneous writers. Early librarians in Alexandria Library include Zenodos, Demetrius of Palerum, and so on and so forth. Our class activity 2. Why is the history of librarianship based on scanty, inconsistent evidences of collections of manuscripts? And what were books in the early libraries called? Between 1 and 1065 AD, the earliest library regulations were discovered in an excavated library in Athens, which reads, "No book shall be taken out, since we have sworn an oath to that effect. It will be open from the first hour until the sixth, that is sunrise to none. And by the 4th century, Rome had 29 public libraries. And at the end of the 4th century, many centuries witnessed the rise and fall of libraries, but the monasteries continued to devote time to copying from borrowed collections. Librarianship between 1065 and 1447 AD. This is the Norman conquest time period, which resulted into the growth of scholarship in England, and this gave birth to the establishment of universities and colleges that housed libraries with books chained and stored in chests. Librarianship from 1 to 1601 AD. This is the beginning of printing press. The printing press is the beginning of the printing press. Libraries' collection grew, catalogs increased in numbers, mail libraries established, and literature became cheaper. The period under review witnessed the dissolution of monasteries library by Henry VIII and series of war among nations, the Persian War in Germany, the Huguenot Wars in France. These events affected the history of librarianship negatively. Accumulated intellectual collections of about 800 years were destroyed. However, private collections were not affected. Now let's look at this activity. Which events affected the history of librarianship negatively? Okay, let's move to another topic. Librarianship from 1601 to the 28th century. Librarianship between 1601 and 1799 AD. A great number of universities, libraries were established, and donations increased. Cataloging skills improved, and there was noticeable advancement in book printing. Librarianship between 1799 and 1849 AD. The Library of Congress (LC) was established exactly on April 24, 1800, which greatly influenced librarianship as a profession and libraries as an institution through its scheme of classification. So let's look at librarianship from 1601 to the 28th century. Librarianship from 1601 to the 28th century. Librarianship in the 20th century. Several papers were read during library association meetings and conferences that influenced the development of library works, which includes the coordination and development of library services, adoption of cooperative purchase by libraries, compilation of a register of professionals, qualified librarians. Also, the first outline of the Library of Congress classification scheme was published in 1904. Library associations were established during the period under consideration. Some of them are the British Medical Library Association, Special Library Association in the United States, the Library Association of New Zealand, Finnish Library Association, and Norwegian Library Association. Several libraries such as rural libraries, technical and commercial libraries were also established across the globe as the field of librarianship became more active. However, the library system was adversely affected by the World War as many librarians were caught up into the military. Also, there was a rapid growth in information collection, processing, storage, and dissemination in the 20th century. And other formats of information storage apart from paper were developed. Technological advancement redefined the library management systems. Library operations such as circulation were automated. The reference sessions was transformed from face-to-face to telephone-based to web-based tools. The global access to information via the web enabled librarians to connect with library users beyond the walls of the library through social networks, online reference services, and video conferencing. Before we move to the next lesson, let's look at the activity we have here. Discuss the following: Dewey's Decimal Classification, Cotter Scheme of Classifications, and Mnemonic System of Classification. Now we are in the librarianship of the 21st century and the next generation librarians. So librarians in the 21st century. Technological advancements revolutionized librarianship, and librarians' job of sorting and providing information increased exponentially due to digital revolution. The internet had created a huge challenge of information overload. Information overload simply means too much information. So librarians were faced with the task of creating bibliographic databases, digital catalogs, and the use of barcodes and storebooks. Information retrieval tools known as search engines like Google are on the increase, and librarians are constantly faced with the task of sorting information for library users amongst myriad of networks information junk. Libraries engage in the provision of 24/7 services to patrons via the internet as users read, download, print on the go. And several libraries have set up institutional repositories, open educational resources, and online catalogs, moving from the era of automation to electronic. This era also witnessed the shift from information storage in physical books to CD-ROMs, memory cards, electronic books, electronic database, and clouds. The manual delivery system by post changed to electronic document delivery system, and core library operations like cataloging, circulation, information retrieval now became online and real time. Librarians engage in collaboration with professionals in related fields and have developed skills in creativity, innovation, critical thinking, and problem solving. Librarianship has gone beyond waiting for users to seek information in the library. Librarians connect, interact with users, and advocate for library, now known as the information warehouse. And library advocacy now is done using Web 2.0 technology, using social media tools such as electronic mail, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and mobile phones by sending SMS, short message services. Librarians engage in digital literacy programs, training people on how to use online collaboration tools, social media sites, and solving safe online. As learning is shifting from knowledge transmission to knowledge building, libraries are also transiting into team-based collaborative environment. Hence, the need for librarians to develop collaborating skills, which is the key sustenance to knowledge building community in any educational institution. Finally, we want to consider the next generation of librarians. And the focus has shifted from information delivery. Librarians now concentrate on learning impact, that is, leading users to the right sources of information at the right time. Also, librarians introduce new technologies to students and teachers and provide tools for locating trusted information online. These tools are used to disseminate information through media that support diversity of learning. The next generation librarian focus more on community-based knowledge and resource sharing, collaborations within libraries. Librarians are now content instructors, providing answers to and helping users to find the missing links in the creation, evaluation, and production of content. By developing collaborative digital reference services, librarians provide solutions through an online remote virtual reference services such as real-time online chat and Ask a Librarian. In conclusion, the next generation librarians focus on the context, that is, understanding users' ecosystem and culture to develop learners, and not on content that measured on developing the land. Quickly, let's look at our activity for this section. Librarianship in the 21st century and the next generation librarian. Number one, list some of the inventions that began in the 21st century. What is Web 2.0 and what is the focus of the next generation librarian? In this lesson, we have been able to define some concepts in library and information systems, understand the history of librarianship before 1500 BC to the 28th century, and understand the history of librarianship in the 21st century and the next generation. Thank you for listening. See you in the next class.